let's see what we can do here. Good edge right there. I don't know how well you can see it on video, but I'm throwing a lot of sparks on it. It's just not catching nothing. Now, let's try the same thing. It's trying to. It's landing on it and sitting there and glowing a second. Got it. It did it. That is why I carry a ferrocerium rod. Hi guys, it's Blackie for Shaman's Forge Bushcraft. Okay, the question is what you carry in your fire kit, the ignition sources. Now, I had a very nice discussion with a gentleman at the Pathfinder gathering, and what he carries, he'd seen my video and he wanted to talk about it, and what he carries is he carries a ferrocerium rod, he carries a flint and steel set, and he carries a bow drill set. Okay, we talked about it. I'm not saying that's not a viable option, but you need to break down and look at what you're actually creating. Now, flint and steel. We carried flint and steel for hundreds of years, probably thousands in some form. Of course, as you know, it's a hardened piece of steel and a hard piece of flint or chert. When you strike it, it's going to rip tiny particles off of the steel and they're going to combust in the air. The temperature of those sparks is somewhere between 500 and 800 degrees, depending. Their peak time is not very long as well. So with this young man who is doing it, the flint and steel, you have to carry charred material with you. A char tin, you know, char cloth or charred material. The bow drill set creates a coal and is very susceptible to moisture. You've got to keep it wrapped up blood tight to keep it from getting damp and therefore not working. The ferrocerium rod, on the other hand, generates anywhere from, I think it was somewhere in the 1500, 2000, it's up there in the, way up there, 3 to 5 times that of flint and steel. Now if I'm carrying char cloth, why do I need flint and steel? This does a better job. If I'm carrying charred material in a tin, why carry the flint and steel? The ferrocerium rod does a better job. Anything that requires a spark to land on something to ignite it, the ferrocerium rod beats them. The only reason we couldn't carry these in living history was they hadn't been invented yet. So, and I'll tell you a story about catching a guy one night. We had gone on an overnight trek in living history attire, and it had been damp, and it had been nasty, and it had turned cold, and we had, part of it had to move, about 11 o'clock at night, moved several hundred yards to another location, and we're all just trying to settle in for the night, and somebody said something about starting a fire. It is cold, it is foggy, it is damp. Everything has got a little bit of at least a moisture content, and so he produced out of his rucksack a ball of dry material. He split up some kindling, made all this stuff, and he got up here and you heard the distinct thunk, 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 thunk of a flint and steel, and he must have tried for 30 minutes. All of us had done made beds and lay down. We were hearing that thunk, thunk, thunk. And then I heard something different. I heard this and suddenly there was this bright shower of sparks, and I heard and a big shower of sparks, and his fire got lit. And I sat up on one elbow and said, "You're using a ferrocerium rod, aren't you?" He'd snuck that in. Ferrocerium rod is superior if anything requires a spark. Okay? Now, if I'm carrying charred material, which is a good idea anyway, that's great for the next fire, because I start with my little can of tinder or whatever, or the stuff I procure out here, and I create my fire. When I get done with my fire, I pick up the char, put into my char tin for my next fire. I open up the tin, I take my ferrocerium rod, I take my striker, I strike in the tin, and in all of that, something's going to catch. I get a glowing ember, I fish it out, maybe fish a couple more pieces out of it small, put it all together, blow it until it ignites, whoosh. So the ferrocerium rod wins out on all the sparking type things. I recommend, as I've said before, a flame producer. Two that produce flame, matches and a lighter. A third method that produces something else. I carry a ferrocerium rod and I carry a burning lens. With those four sources of ignition, I'm about guaranteed a fire, one way or the other. As long as everything isn't dripping, sopping wet, I'm going to get a fire going. Just my 2 cents worth, guys. I'm not saying that the young man did anything wrong in his selections, but he was going more primitive. And I would say, go ahead, tote a bow drill set, tote a flint and steel, but tote a lighter. Because when it's for real, pull out a lighter. You know, when it's, you're honest to God, you got to have fire, you're hypothermia. Pull out a lighter and get a fire going. Hit that button for 5 seconds and get it going. Hope this helps, guys. I'm Blackie for Shaman's Forge Bushcraft, wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day.